And today I'm going to talk about what I'm going to plant, what changes I've made, and why I made these changes. Hey everybody, welcome to Country Girl with Kathy Jarvis. If you're new to gardening, one of the first things you need to consider is what you want to plant. What does your family eat? How many plants do you need to plant? Are you going to just plant for the summer season to supplement your food? Are you going to plant enough to harvest it and store it for the year? Do you have the knowledge how to store it? Are you going to can it, freeze it, dehydrate it? Do you have places to put this once you've got it done? So those are some of the things you need to consider before you ever start deciding where and where you're going to plant and how big an area you need. Now, when you start thinking about how big you're going to need, you need to look and see what the spacing is for the plants, whether you're going to do in row or whether you're going to do raised beds, because the planting methods are different for both, and the equipment you need are different. For raised beds, basically all you need is the raised bed, some good quality soil, a flat surface to work with, and a hoe or hand tools. For in-ground, you will need all the above except for the raised beds. You'll need the fertilizer, you'll need the tiller, you'll need a hoe. You need things with long handles so you don't have to bend over so much. And so take those things into consideration, the equipment that you're going to be needing. Then go out, once you've decided how much you need to be, how big your garden needs to be, go out and look for a location. Now, my first garden was in the backyard, and at the time, 35 years ago or so, these trees that you see here were only about maybe 2 or 4 feet tall, not very big. I did not take into consideration that as they grew, they were going to turn this sunny garden into a shade garden. So look at something and look at the future. Is there anything that's going to possibly grow up to the point where it's going to make your garden too shady? So find a place where it's going to be sunlight for 8 hours a day, and then put in your garden. Now, I still use these beds, but I use them for shade-loving plants. Basically, it's my herbs that I keep back here that are perennial, that keep growing every year. I've got some lemon balm, and I got some oregano and asparagus. These are what's growing in this bed. So once I get that done, it's time to decide what you're going to plant into each bed. Now, there's a whole bunch of different programs on the computer that you can go with. Some are good, some aren't so good. You can do Excel, you can do Paint, you can do a lot of different ones. And I have, over the time, wasted a lot of ink and a lot of time working on the computer and printing out every little bed. And it wasn't bad when I only had 4 beds. But now that I got 23 beds, it's way too much ink, way too much time to be working on the computer and printing out each little bed. So I've reverted back to the old pen and pencil, and that works great. First thing I did was I made an overall sketch of my garden. Now, my garden's pretty good size. So the first thing I've done is I've sketched out the complete layout of the garden. And this isn't complete because it still has a melon patch over here that I just didn't put in. And then the next thing I do is I go and I divide up. Like, this is the high greenhouse, and I put in everything I want to put in here. And I did this in pencil. That way I can just erase it and use it over and over again. The small greenhouse in each of the beds. Alright, over here I have my grapes. I'm hoping to get an actual arbor or trellis or something for these guys. And then we have the blackberry patch. And then over here we have the strawberries. This is my potato bed. Sweet potatoes are on this side, regular potatoes are on that side. I had okra in between here last year, and you see the okra pods are still there. So if I needed seeds, I can always get those seeds yet. And then this bed is going to be strawberries. I see I've got some already planted. I'm going to put strawberries the rest of the way through there. And then behind there, okay, this one is asparagus. That's the reason it's got the chicken wire over it instead of the black cloth, because I want the asparagus to be able to come up. And then on the other side, I'm going to put, I'm going to trellis 4 little yellow pear tomatoes. That's what's going to go into that bed. And then over in this bed, over here, I'm going to put my zucchinis. I'm going to put, going to train them to go upright this year. There's a new one that I'm trying. It's made specifically to go upright. So we're going to put 4 of those in, and some flowers, some marigolds and stuff to help keep the squash bugs away. Okay, in this bed, I'm planning on putting my okra and possibly some green beans. Haven't decided for sure. This one's going to get cauliflower and broccoli, and this one over here is going to be Brussels sprouts and cabbage. Now over here, I'm going to put up this trellis, and I'm going to put lima beans on it. And then here I'm going to have po beans. And then I'm going to put another trellis here, and that is going to be for the cantaloupes. Now, this is my iris bed. Going to put some chips on it or something to help keep the weeds down. I had a lot of weeds last year. So let's go into the greenhouse and see what we're going to plant in there. Now, if you remember before, I had cement block beds where you just saw those metal beds. I had those for like 10 years or so, and I liked them. They were okay. They did the job. It's a little windy today, so you've got the vibration of the straps. But I had some problems with them. First of all, if you noticed, the ground isn't exactly level. And when I put in my cement block beds, I just laid the blocks on top of the ground and filled them with dirt, which meant they were uneven, high on one side and low on the other, which didn't work out too well, because if you didn't plant in seedlings that had fairly good root system, if you just put in those seeds and then you got rain, all those little seeds moved themselves down to the low part of the bed, which meant when they did sprout, you either had to re-put them back where you want them, and if you didn't know what you were planting, you had your carrots mixed in with your radishes, and your radishes mixed in with your broccoli, and it was a mess. And a lot of those do not like to be moved once they get started, so you would lose them. So I had a problem there where I had to replant quite a few times because of the rain would come right after I planted, and everything would go downhill. Another thing I didn't like about them was that cement blocks are rough, and when you're working, weeding, and you have short sleeves on or sleeveless on, your arms get scuffed up something terrible. Oops, my delivery's here. Okay, as I was saying before my delivery came, what I did not like about cement blocks also was that when you worked with them, your arms would get all scuffed up moving across that rough cement. And most of all, I didn't like the critters. Now, those cement blocks have holes in them. And it takes a lot of dirt to fill up all those little holes. And it's kind of wasted good soil. You don't want to put your garden rich soil in there because you can't really can't grow anything in those. They dry out quick. Some people have luck with growing flowers in them. I never did. And that was a good spot for spiders, mice, chipmunks, but most of all snakes. And I'm not really afraid of snakes. I've learned which ones are poisonous in our area, but I don't like to be startled by them. And to be working in and around and have a little garter snake, or mainly the garter snakes, would pop up their little heads and look around and say, "Hey, what you doing in my garden?" No, did not like to be startled by them. And I like to cover my strawberries with a bird netting to keep the birds out of them. And I have killed too many snakes. I have rescued too many snakes from that netting. So what I like about the metal gardens, or the really raised beds, is that they're a lot higher off the ground, and I can put the netting on them and tuck it inside, so there's less chance of the snake crawling up it from the outside. So hopefully, I'm only covering the strawberry beds. I'm not covering the other ones with the netting, the bird netting. The other type of netting and the plastic and the frost blankets don't bother the snakes. It's the stuff that has the hose in it, just big enough for them to get their heads through, and then they get caught. So I didn't like it for that reason. So we went and switched out to the metal beds. Plus I downsized the garden. Before I had 8, 9, 10, 12 beds out there, and I've knocked it down to 8. So I've taken a couple out and turned them into in-ground beds instead. But getting back to what I'm going to grow in the big greenhouse. This bed, let me get my notes. You know the saying, man plans and God laughs? That's kind of what happens with gardening at times. You plan to put something in, and things just don't work out. A lot of times, if you do cessationalist garden where you're planting one thing after the other, and you look online and you go, "Oh, this should be done in this amount of time," and then nature says, "No, we're going to take longer." So I have learned not to really worry too much about my second planting. When the first planting's done, if I have time to do a second one, I have in my notes what I want to do. Whether I get that done or not, it's no really big deal, because I've planted it somewhere else on the first time. And so here on this trellis, I plan on planting peas, and I will get them started within the next week or so. March 17th is when we usually plant the peas outside. You can usually plant inside an unheated greenhouse about 2 weeks earlier than that. So I plan on planting some peas there, and I will follow them with cucumbers later on. And last year I made the mistake of putting too many cucumbers on there, and the trellis held them very nicely. The only problem was there was so much growth that when I took them down at the end of the year, I found a lot of overripe cucumbers that I had not seen because of the foliage. So I'm not going to put nearly as many in this year. And then I'm going to put some parsnips in the front on this side, and some onions and some radishes. And in this bed is going to be my sweet corn. Now I know people say, why waste sweet corn? Why waste a bed on sweet corn? Well, the reason is we have a lot of deer, a lot of raccoons, and if I don't put my sweet corn inside an enclosed area, now even when these row up sides, I have screening on the animal screening between that and outside, so the animals can't really get in easily. And I had really good luck with my sweet corn last year inside here. So we're going to put sweet corn, and then underneath the sweet corn and between the sweet corn, I'm going to put my bush beans. And then over here, I'm going to put bush beans. I got the trellis up, but mainly that's just to keep it from being outside in the weather, because I'm going to put yellow brandywine tomatoes in that bed also, 6 of them. Then over here, this is where the po beans are going to go. Now I've got it covered because I was trying to see if I could overwinter these peppers, but as I look at them, I'm pretty sure they did not overwinter very well, so I think they're all dead. We're going to give them a little bit long time yet, because I don't have to plant the po beans yet. They prefer a warmer temperature at night, so I'll have to wait until it gets a little bit warmer for them. But I'm going to put po beans in here, and I'm going to put my popcorn. And then I have a blueberry in here, and I got blueberries in the wagon there, so that's going to stay. And then last year I didn't use this shelf at all for any planting. This year I'm going to put my hot peppers in these containers instead of down here, because I had these last year with the cucumbers, and between them growing really tall and the cucumbers going crazy, it was really quite a mess I had to take care of, and I didn't need all the peppers that I planted, so I'm not going to plant nearly this many peppers. You see there, that's my peppers, my hot peppers. And then over here right now I have some leeks and some onions that I have started in January, and I don't have many in this group because tell you the truth, I forgot to come out here and water them, so I need to water them again. We did put in this trash bucket, which I have water in, so I don't have to turn on the hose in the wintertime to water these. I just reach in there and get the water and water those. No big deal. Now, once you find out what works in your greenhouse, you don't really have to worry so much about rotation. My rotation is very simple. Last year the cucumbers were here, this year they're here. Sweet corn was there, sweet corn goes here. Everything just gets rotated one bed over. And that way I have a rotation, and I come in and I put new compost on top of the beds as needed. Put in any fertilizer, bone meal, or anything else that needs to be put in here, and I continue on with and I try to do that in the fall, and that way it can kind of relax and work itself through the winter. Now I also have some buckets here and more back here, which will go probably in the corners, or they're portable. I can pick them up, I can move them wherever I want them. So if I want to move them outside, I can move them outside. Now out here, oh, it's windy. Hopefully you can hear me. Out here I have my bucket garden. Now this has a board underneath there that the buckets were supposed to be on, but as this is a couple years old, and those boards are starting to rot a little, so I put the shelving across them, and that seems to be working fine. And this is going to be my carrots. We go through a lot of carrots in a year, so every 2 weeks I'm going to fill another bucket with seeds, and that way I'll have a continuous, every 2 weeks I should be able to harvest some carrots. And I do have some carrots in there growing also. And this is what I consider my bucket garden. But I can put those other buckets out here in front on this gravel if I need to. Now, in the other greenhouse, which I call the low greenhouse, because this has the lower sides where that one had the tall sides. And again, if something works, do it over and over again. This is my row of sweet peppers. Now, I keep my sweet peppers and my hot peppers separate because these are heirloom seeds, which I can save the seeds from, and I don't want my sweet peppers to mix with my hot peppers. I want them to stay true. So my sweet peppers are here, my hot peppers are over there. Okay. And what I do to rotate, I usually put tomatoes on that side, okay, and peppers on this side. And I'll do that maybe 2 years in a row, and then I'll switch the sides. This will be sweet peppers, and that'll be the tomatoes. So that's how I do that. So my plan for this garden this year is going to be a lot of peas. Going to put peas on that trellis, and peas on that trellis, and I'm going to put peas across the top, across the front here. You saw that trellis in the other room, other greenhouse, that fold up one, small, that's going to go here, and the peas are going to go on it. And then underneath those, I'm going to put beets and turnips, and then I'm going to put, when it's done, and when peas are done, I'm going to put a different cucumber on one of these. And I'm trying something new this year. I'm going to try putting my honey, not my honey, my butternut squash. I'm going to try doing them on a trellis this year in here and see how that turns out. I know they like to put out a lot of vines and stuff, so I'm hoping I can put 1 or 2 plants on here and just vine them back and forth, and hopefully get the butternut squash without having them rot on the ground. So we're going to try that this year. And then over here on this side, this is going to be my basically my salad garden. I got Brussels sprouts. I'm going to have some celery, some kale, Swiss chard, and some radishes in this area. And I've got some of the stuff planted in here to see if it's going to turn out. But I also got some of the same stuff in the grow room upstairs, so I can just transplant out what I need in here if need be. And then here we have the strawberries that we're overwintering in here. We'll see how this little planter works out. And then over there planter is going to be for my spinach and my lettuce. You notice I didn't put any lettuce in the garden over there because I put my lettuce in here. And it worked out really fine last year with the lettuce there. So that is the plan for this little garden. Now the tomatoes I'm putting in here are going to be the Roma type, which are determinate types. So I'm hoping that these new cages will be enough to keep them contained. I'm planting them every 2 feet because I'm not planning on doing that much trimming on them, unlike the indeterminate tomatoes, which you do a lot of trimming. Anyway, I do. So I've got 4 back there and 6 down here. So that's what I'm hoping for on those. So let's move on to the next greenhouse. Alright, in this greenhouse I have my potting station where I pot up the plants, and then I have some shelves here where I can put them, I can store the pots that are ready. I've got all the pots ready for the geraniums, not geraniums, the petunias, which I have upstairs in the grow room. Once they get their second leaf and are hardened off, they will be placed in these pots and brought out here to grow. And then I've got some other pots here that I'm going to put herbs in, because last year I put all my herbs into this bed and it was slightly overcrowded, more than slightly, because the catnip goes crazy. As you can see, it's already greening up for this year. And my parsnips did really well. Mint did really well. I don't know if that's greening up yet or not. I haven't noticed. And I had sage in here, and of course my rosemary. So a lot of my annual plants that can go into the smaller things. I will put my basil in here because basil's huge. But my thyme, my oregano, and my other little ones that don't grow about 12 inches tall will go onto the top shelf up there. And I'll grow them in here that way. The compost is here. This is the one I use for kitchen scraps mainly. And as you can see, it makes a mess at the bottom. I need to get out here and scrub that because it does leak. And if I realized that before, I probably would not put the pavers there, and I probably would just put them on the bare ground. And I may change that this summer. It won't be that hard to take out a row of pavers and scoot them over a little. Or not a row, but just I have to take about 4 out. So that's a little tip for you. Don't put your compost, tumbling compost over pavers unless you want to scrub them out a lot. Okay, out of this greenhouse, and notice I do have a place to set in here. Okay, this is my trellis for my indeterminate tomatoes. They're a foot apart. They're hooked. I grow them on hooks and trim them down to one stem, and that way I can pretty much grow a bunch of tomatoes in a small area. So, and then I haven't decided whether I'm going to leave this weed barrier down or whether I'm going to take it up and plant some plants in between them. Don't know yet. I doubt it. I think I'm going to leave the barrier down. I was thinking about putting onions down the center, but I think it's going to be more work. It's going to cost me more work because there's going to be more weeds to pull in between. And I'm trying to stay away from pulling as many weeds as possible. That's how come a lot of this weed barrier is going to stay. I'm just going to make little holes for the weeds. And this is my melon patch. This is where the watermelon and the pumpkins are going to go this year. And last year I had watermelons, pumpkins, butternut squash, and cantaloupe all in this area. And I did not get many of the cantaloupe because by the time I had them planted, they were mixing up with the watermelons, and the big leaves covered and I did not get the cantaloupe out before they rotted. And they stayed on the ground and they seemed like they rot. And same way with the butternut squash. They seemed like they rotted on the ground. And I had problems with the raccoons with the cantaloupes. They didn't bother the watermelons, they didn't bother the pumpkins, but they went after the cantaloupes. So I think I got one cantaloupe out of all of it last year because of the rotting on the ground and the raccoons eating them. Now, this is my pile of blocks that I used for all those raised beds I had before. So what I'm going to do next is create a 3-bin compost album. So I got that to do this spring. And this is the bird garden. It's all cleared up and ready. You can see that some of the plants have already started to come up. The irises are up. Daisies are up. They're doing really, really well. So hopefully it's going to be a nice little garden this year. These are all pre-annuals. I don't have anything in here right now that's annual. This was my potato patch last year and the year before. And I just was not pleased with how they turned out. The ground is clay. It's really hard. So when it came time to dig them up, it was like digging into concrete. So what I'm going to do this year is I'm going to till it up like normal. I'm going to plant cut flowers into this area and see how that does. That way I'll have flowers I can bring in for the house, and plus it'll be they'll be all annual flowers, so it'll be a great thing for the birds also. And this little area right here has strawberries in it that never really did any good. I don't know if any of them came back. I transplanted a lot of them out already. And this is probably where I'm thinking about putting the compost in this area. I'm thinking. I still have to decide on that one. And you already know what everything else is. I already told you. So I hope that you have learned something. Remember, I'm doing mainly one plant per bed, or at least two. I'm not air planting anything because in the past I've done that and it just really has not worked out that well. I tried the Three Sisters one year in there, and by the time the corn was ready to harvest, I couldn't get to it because the beans had wrapped themselves around the corn to the point that if you pulled the corn off, you snap the bean vine off. So I'm not doing the Three Sisters, not planting corn and po beans together. You know, I'll stick with the bush beans maybe, but not the po beans. That's the only thing I've got that I'm going to plant. The rest of it, these gardens out here, are mainly going to be just where I can't, 1 per square foot. That way I can leave the weed fabric on and not worry about having to weed it so much. So hopefully you learned something. Remember, like, share, subscribe. Dream big, follow that dream, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless everybody. Bye.